I had a bit of a personal revelation this week. Actually, two revelations. One is that I am probably the biggest proponent of Chalica in the entire Unitarian Universalist Association. And I wish I were exaggerating, but I'm not. All these ancient rituals and time-honored traditions, I made them up. I made them up like 5 years ago because I felt like we needed them to breathe life into this thing that we need. And yeah, I'm kind of a zealot about it. And I also realized that I'm so jazzed about Chalica because so many of the old holidays that I've celebrated my whole life, they've kind of lost their luster for me. I am someone who is concerned with dismantling racism and other oppressions. So for me, the celebrations of big national holidays like Memorial Day and Independence Day and Columbus Day and even Thanksgiving are overshadowed by the shame of our history of colonization and subjugation. And I love and honor my parents. But Mother's Day and Father's Day are always a sad reminder that I am not and never will be a parent. And like so many other LGBTQ plus people, I used to see Halloween as a kind of high holy day. And it was the one day a year where we could be whoever we wanted to be, whoever we truly were, and dress the way we wanted to dress without having to explain or defend ourselves. But now, even though there's still a lot of hatred directed at us, it's so much easier to surround ourselves with people who love us just the way we are. We can show our true selves 365 days a year, not just on the one night when everyone is in costume. And now Halloween is as big and commercial as Christmas. In fact, the two holidays have merged as the beginning and the end of an over-decorated season of run-on holidays that I just think of as pumpkin spice. For a couple of years, I wished everyone happy pumpkin spice from the middle of October to the beginning of January. And it occurred to me this week how snarky that sounded. Don't even get me started on Christmas. You know, my dear husband, his mom lives with us. And she lost two infant sons. He lost two brothers, 2 years apart, both on the week of Christmas. And when Joe was 12, on Christmas Eve, their house burned to the ground in the middle of the night. So Christmas, yeah, just kind of not a thing with that family. And I can't blame them. But for me, you know, personally, the thing about Christmas is that the expectations are so enormous. The expectations of money and gifts and time. The expectation is that we'll all be deliriously happy and content and that we'll be surrounded by adoring family and loving friends. And that isn't always true, especially for a couple of people who move around a lot and are often far from family. So Chalica, it's a chance to start something new traditions with a new way of being present in the world, grounded in the values that matter the most to me and to the people, to you all who are with me on this journey towards spiritual wholeness. Traditions like taking time to reflect, like being kind to ourselves, like reviewing and thinking about the principles, mindful that we're actually doing a pretty good job of it, and taking some time to celebrate what a good job we're doing. Maybe thinking about a way in which we could do a little better in the coming days and years. There's no big feast, just beans and maybe some rice or seasonal vegetables. There's no required decorations, though You may want to lash together 7 sticks into an asymmetrical kind of star, the wonkier the better. There's no expectation to crisscross the globe to be with family in time for that one big moment that always seems to disappear too fast. All we're asked to do during Chalica is to be mindful of our shared values and to simply be present to the people that we're with. Henry David Thoreau is a great example of how to be present. His writings are full of lines like, "The other day, when I had been standing perfectly still some 10 minutes, looking at a willow which had just blossomed." Like, who gets to do that? He would always have this chance to just revere the world around him and drink in its glory. Then his attention would turn to whoever was right in front of him. And he'd be engaged in a deeply meaningful conversation, reflection on the natural world and human relationships. Even when he lived in the relative isolation of his shack at Walden Pond, he was always connected. There were always people dropping by. And he knew that to be present was the best present that he could give them. And his presence to others, the presence of others to him, was the best gift that he could receive. He knew that because he took the time to notice, to reflect on his place in the world around him. Devora Diller Maynor knows that experience. She's been a UU for most of her life, and except for a few years, she's lived in remote locations without a congregation near enough that she can attend. A few years ago, her daughter asked her if there was a uniquely UU holiday, so Devora did a little research and learned about Chalica. She stumbled on me online. And she and her family have totally incorporated Chalica into their family life and even created their own traditions and rituals with input from the kids. She says now that Chalica has really helped her family have a sense of community with the larger church. They don't feel so isolated anymore. And that's important because studies have shown that when we feel isolated, like we don't belong anywhere, we tend to be more vigilantly self-preserving in our actions, and we tend to engage in conspiratorial thinking. We all know there's a lot of that going on these days. A lot of isolation, living itself out in some really violent ways. In his new book called Belonging, The Science of Creating Connection and Bridging Divides, researcher Jeffrey Cowan describes how that works. He says we all tend to ascribe the behaviors of others to their core beliefs rather than to the circumstances that they're in. For example, if someone cuts us off in traffic, we're likely to assume it's because they don't care about anybody but themselves. One time, I don't know what I did, but a guy pulled up alongside me at a light and he opened his window and he screamed at me, "Effing Trumpist, I hope you die." That's a heck of an assumption, isn't it? And the thing is, we all do it. Okay, we may not roll our windows down and scream obscenities at people, but we all have that way of thinking. I know I have. But Cohen says when we take the time to engage in reflection on our core values, and of course, that's what's at the core of Chalica, we tend to think more openly and more kindly. We're more respectful of the ways others think and why they think the way they think. We're more likely to understand that maybe their behavior was an innocent mistake and not an indicator of flawed character. When I hear things like that, it makes me glad the reflection on values is at the core of Chalica. If we do it right, if I do it right, it can be the beginning of a whole new way of connecting with other UUs and understanding people who frankly have been perplexing me. This new beginning with this new holiday for me has been a chance to let go of all the disappointments of the past holidays and even let go of any expectations for the future based on comparisons to the past. And I can't wait to see how it all turns out. I can't wait to see how you all approach Chalica next year and what it will look like when we celebrate together. So please rise now as you're willing and able and open your gray hymnals to number 118, This Little Light of Mine.